So are you telling me that the Prophet ﷺ himself clearly said that if you're going to advise the ruler, do not do it in public? How many more are you gonna? Because we
hear the Sunnah today.
No, of course. Obviously, Charma Bhai is a podcast. It's a discussion, isn't it? Not a lecture.
Abu Bakr heard the Sunnah of the Prophet.
I'm not denying.
Okay,
we can.
Another hadith.
I can take.
Another
I
hadith.
can start
Another hadith.
reciting ayat and say,
beautiful. We love to hear the Quran. We love to hear
Should I
it.
start reciting?
After the Sunnah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا
Why
لا
does that come
تقدموا
first?
بين يدي الله ورسوله.
The point I'm making is that we understand the point.
Abu Bakr, wallahi, let me finish.
How many? Go on.
How many more?
I have a few more hadith.
Go, good.
No, it's good.
Let him go.
Akhi, hear the Sunnah of the Prophet.
Fadl.
Okay, the Prophet describes the rulers. Some of them, their hearts are the hearts of shayateen. Can you get a worse description than that?
A lot of people they make a lot of mistakes in this issue, is because they didn't submit to Allah and His Messenger in this issue. Rather, they submitted to their emotions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers and sisters. Before we get into today's episode, something important to mention. Two things. Number one, we've now got Chai with My Bhai merch, which you can purchase clicking on the link below. Second thing is we've started to do sponsorships on our channel. So we don't do normal YouTube ads because it's haram involved in it. And as in, long story.
Gambling ads, music ads.
There's a lot, yeah. Anyway, point is that we're now doing sponsorships. So if you've got a business, Islamic business or a product and you'd like to get it onto the show, get some exposure, then email us at nasihasession@gmail.com. Or there might be an alternative email on the screen right now. If there is, email that because we're probably going to make a specific one just for that. Today's episode is sponsored by Dessert Delicacy. Can you zoom in and just show? They've provided us with this Kinder Bueno brownie. I've actually eaten. Ooh, it's looking nice, isn't it? Yeah. I've actually eaten from them before on Eid and Allahumma barik. They make a lot of. They've got a huge variety.
Are these the ones who made those chocolate lollipop things?
Yeah.
They were banging.
Yeah. So
make sure you lot check them out.
Check them out. Give them a follow. If you guys want to order, feel free to order. And yeah, let's get into the episode. And
can I try one before we get into?
Let's tuck into the food. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Brothers and sisters, sorry about that, we're having a bit of a heated
I don't believe it's that clear either.
I
don't believe it's that
Listen,
clear.
I was going to say, what's the position of the Shafi'iyya though? That is not, huh?
Should we carry on the discussion after the chai with my Bhai, inshallah? Today we've got a special guest and you know he's only been in the building for a few hours and he's already ruffling some feathers and conflicts. We need to go back to the previous episodes on how to resolve conflicts. But alhamdulillah, it's conflict based on Deen, based on ilm, based on knowledge, based on ayat and hadith. So inshallah there's room for that. So today's episode, let's get straight into it. Before we get straight into it, I want to clarify something, right? I don't know if this is going to be waffle, if you're going to consider this to be waffle or not. But basically, no problem. If you think it's bad, you can cut it out. I don't mind. But I just want to get that off my chest. Now that that's done, let's get into the business. So today's topic is quite a juicy one, like that story that I just told that you might not ever hear because your mom might cut it out. Who knows? And it's on the issue of the rulers. That's right. Are they Muslim rulers? And we're going to talk about it from a variety of different perspectives. And I'm going to, inshallah, play the role because I don't want anyone to think that, I'm from a sect that I'm not from. Just making that very clear from now on. It's a disclaimer. Anything I do say in this, maybe giving like the whole disclaimer, whatever disclosure, whatever it's called.
People in the comments actually believe sometimes that they're like, why are Abu Bakr always argumentative?
Yeah.
That's my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say even in the video.
Why did Abu Bakr ask dumb questions?
Yeah. No. Even in the feminism video that me and you did, people in the comments were they're like, "Oh, look at this guy, the leader of the liberalism." Well, not the leader, but they were like, "Oh, this brother's doing such a good job championing the women's rights." And I'm thinking, "Wow, I don't believe any of that stuff." Like, I don't know what you're not talking about.
There was one episode of Ride Out where even he believed it. He was like, hey.
"Humans have come, run!"
Really?
Scared. Wallahi, run away. Does that make sense?
What's the reference for this? I know, Mom.
Yeah.
So you have to play the...
Okay, you have to do it for the people. Okay.
Please,
It's on the tafsir of the ayah in Surah Al-Jinn. I'm going to mention the ayah in a second.
I'm breaking my cover and that. Like.
Sorry. Yeah.
You're breaking my cover. Like, literally, So, let's get into today's episode. Okay, so listen, guys. There's an elephant in the room. I'm not calling him a fat. I'm just saying.
I just realised why they say elephant in the room. Because elephants are quiet. When they walk, they're quiet, you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's deep.
I thought it was because there's something so big,
It's
so
so big,
but
obvious
it's so
and
quiet.
clear.
Yeah,
maybe
that's
that's,
so
maybe that's a
big,
part
but
of
it's
it. Maybe that's
quiet.
still part of it.
I
It's
don't know how.
loud.
That's
If-
just that's
if
my
you've
own.
never
No,
seen
they
a
walk. When they
documentary.
walk, they're very quiet. Apparently, when I read that they're very quiet when they walk. If that's true, then I was like, well, maybe that's the reason why.
Those majestic elephants.
That's
Must be a
that's
big
some,
room.
that's some
If the
ijtihad
elephant-
that
I
comes.
thought the elephant was just sitting in the corner. Because if it's
Yeah.
walking around, it must be quite a big room.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, it's a big elephant.
Let's address the elephant in the hangar.
The point is, that was my ijtihad, innit? Hope it's true.
Alone, Berwick. So, the question that I want to put to you guys today, yeah, and because a lot of people give you guys a lot of stick about the rulers, because you guys are always on this, can't speak out against the rulers are fine, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you can even clarify some of these statements that I'm saying now, but, the rulers are, there's nothing wrong with the rulers, we should leave the rulers, let them do whatever they want, blah, blah,
We
blah.
never said there's nothing wrong with the rule.
I never said that.
So you can guys
We
can
never
clarify
I
that
mean,
in this
let
podcast.
me get to the end of it. Go on.
So, what I want to put to you, yeah, let me paint a picture.
Mm.
Yemen, it's, devastated. Palestine, decimated. Kashmir, destroyed. You got Muslims in the Uyghur Muslims in China. People all around the world, Muslims all around the world are being oppressed. We all agree upon that, right? No one here disagrees upon that.
No.
And we also agree that there are rulers who are Muslim in charge of countries, right? And to some extent, they've got some sort of power over a country that they can, some people might say that they can help, they can intervene, they can do more to help the Muslims around the world. Now, why is it that they aren't using that power, that they've been put into that position of power where they're now able to help, they're able to change? Does that not now make them the problem? The reason why Palestine is suffering is because that government, the UAE, they signed a peace treaty or deal with Israel. Turkey, they've got a peace, treaty with Israel. Pakistan, they've got ties with China. That's why they're not, doing anything to China with the Uyghur Muslims. All these Muslim countries have allies with the West, allies with America, Israel, all these other countries. They're not helping the Muslims. Therefore, the Muslims are suffering. The cause of the Muslims suffering around the world is the leaders. And you guys don't have the belly, the stomach, the courage to speak out against them.
طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وصلي وسلم على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ما بعد. The last point that you made here, you don't have the courage to speak out against them. Okay, one thing that I want to mention is that people think that speaking out against the ruler or whatever you do, it is a sign of your religiosity that you're speaking against the ruler. Why? Because we have the command in the Sharia saying commanding the good and forbidding the evil.
Of course.
And with all these commands in the Sharia, a person needs to understand that part of a person's religiosity, his deen, is that he submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Submitting to them. That is that's your foundation of your religion, right? The foundation
100%.
of your religiosity. طيب. A person now, what he needs to ask himself is not what his emotions think or what he thinks needs to be done, is what has Allah commanded me to do in these situations, and submit to that. And the reason why a lot of people they make mistakes in this, they make a lot of mistakes in this issue, is because they didn't submit to Allah and His Messenger in this issue. Rather, they submitted to their desires and not desires necessarily, their emotions. Because these issues
But if it's
are
in opposition
naturally...
to the Sunnah, it's ultimate desires.
Exactly.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكَ.
فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّمَا يَتَّبِعُونَ أَهْوَاءَهُم.
If they don't respond to Prophet ﷺ, then know they're following their desires. So anything that's in opposition to the Prophet's Sunnah is
Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
ultimately following your desires.
Now, I was going to mention that, which is that this is why, before I was going to mention that, I was going to mention something else, which is, what was I saying? That you have to, the reason why the people, they submit to their emotions in these issues is because these issues are naturally emotional issues. People are dying, pictures, you see, they're naturally emotional issues. So we see why some people, they submit to their emotions. But part of your deen, again, for you to say that I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, you need to do it while submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why when the people, they dealt with religious issues in non-religious ways, justifying it by religion, they were called Ahlul Ahwa, which is the point I was going to come to. They were called Ahlul Ahwa, people of desires. Why? Because they dealt with religious issues using something that is opposed to submitting to Allah and His Messenger, and that is the desires. That's why the people of innovation, they were called أهل الأهواء, the people of desires.
So your emotions ultimately is your desires, your
Yeah,
logic, your views, your
you submit it
opinions.
to your emotions,
You're submitting to
to
your
your
emotions,
hawa, to your desires.
Exactly.
طيب.
Or you're submitting to your intellect, your logic, which is
Intellect, logic, emotions, all of it's
Yeah.
ahwa basically.
Yeah.
Ahwa. Because al-hawa
because people say
is,
it's not emotional, it's logical.
yeah, al-hawa is what your soul inclines to. It comes from the word wind, the wind, al-hawa, which means wind. It goes left and right.
Oh,
Whatever
you
you're
mean Urdu?
inclined to.
Hawa.
It means wind, huh?
Oh, mad, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were Urdu.
Yeah, it's been like that.
So whatever your emotions inclined to, whatever you're inclined to, not according to what Allah and His Messenger told you to do.
Can I just say there?
That's the muqaddimah I need to give introduction, because with this point, that if you know this point, then you're gonna understand the rest of the discussion.
Uh-huh.
Did
I
you-
completely agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
And my counter to that would be, I'm saying the Prophet said to me, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if I see an evil, stop it with my hands. If I can't, which I can't go to the leader of the UAE or to Erdogan in Turkey or to Imran Khan in Pakistan or I can't go there and start fighting them or grabbing them. So what's next?
Oh,
Prophet
good
said,
question. So now, but you missed.
on your tongue.
Yeah, you missed the thing though. You missed the point that why is this suffering happening? We'll talk about that inshallah.
We'll come
But
to
okay. Al-amr bil ma'ruf, the one you said. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi." Notice he said, whoever sees from amongst you evil, let him change it with his hand. فإن لم يستطع, if he can't, فبلسانه, then with his tongue. طيب?
100%.
Sees. Notice this word now. من رأى منكم منكرا, whoever sees evil in front of him. He didn't say whoever hears about evil. Whoever evil takes place somewhere. No.
So there's
This
an
command
implication
here,
there,
this
though.
specific command here, no, generally, I'm not saying now.
Which is the one they use, by the way. For
Yeah.
the rule.
This specific command in this hadith is what? Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar. Commanding the good and forbidding the evil. When is commanding the good and forbidding the evil applied? In the hadith it says, "Man ra'a minkum munkara." Whoever sees. And this seeing is seeing bil basar, with your eyes. Because seeing in the Arabic language is two types, which is seeing with the eyes and seeing with your heart. Yani, you believe. Or you hear. Basira. Naam.
Yeah, I saw it on Sky News.
Yeah.
I was gonna
So
say,
if it sees in front of you.
One second. You have to answer.
Yeah,
'cause
as in-
Yeah, I'm saying seeing in front of you.
No, yes. No, but even then,
No, no, no.
if a fasiq comes to you with news, Allah said, verify it. A kafir is worse than a fasiq. Does that make sense?
But he might see it on the video.
Say that
He
again?
might see on the video. There's such happening in front of him. But the point
But my point is that doesn't tell you the whole picture necessarily.
true.
Yeah.
صح. The point is here, the hadith says, whoever sees the evil. This is bab al-amr bil ma'ruf nahy munkar. The rulings of commanding the good and forbidding the evil come in this hadith. As for the rulings of nasiha, then they're different. Nasiha, which is advising, then they're different.
advising
now,
rulers.
No, advising generally.
Okay.
So we have two chapters. You have to understand this. There's a chapter of there's an issue of al-amr bil ma'ruf and nahy al-munkar,
Enjoying the good, forbidding the evil.
commanding the good and forbidding the evil, and that is when you see something in front of you, أو تسمعه سماعا محققا, you hear it right next to it. For example, someone screaming in the next room, you hear it happening.
So it's not called enjoying the good, forbidding the evil unless you hear it or see it in real life.
So this is the khalal here. People have misunderstood what commanding the good and forbidding the evil is. Commanding the good and forbidding the evil is when you see the evil happening in front of them. That's why if you have the hadith of the ruler putting his hand up making dua in the Jum'ah khutbah like this. What did the Sahabi do? This is what they use. The Sahabi got up
Abu Sa'id al-Khudri.
and told him, may Allah destroy these two hands of yours. I saw the Prophet ﷺ only doing this. So he commanded the good and forbidding evil because it happened in front of him. And if you look at all of the athar of the Salaf, which mentions the Sahabi or the Salaf commanding the ruler or seeing the ruler do something evil and advising him in public, then you see that it comes from an amr ma'ruf, commanding the good and forbidding the evil, this chapter. Because why? Because he saw it right in front of him.
And that's what the
So you
scholars.
have
And
to
one second, so
physically
just
be
to mention on this,
present.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that it has to when you advise the ruler. It has to, because we have this misunderstanding that you just have to be in private with him and no one can hear. Even if the people around you can hear, it's fine as long as it's in front of him. Does that make sense? And that's also backed up by the hadith of the Prophet, hadith Muslim Ahmed. The Prophet said that when you speak to the ruler, he used the word inda sultan jair. Inda is a word in the Arabic language that shows close proximity to the person that you're to the thing that it's connected to. Does that make sense? So you can't say
Damn, that was on the shubhas I was going to bring later on.
that I'm on the minbar and I'm speaking out against the ruler and use this hadith, because the inda means that I'm right next to him. Does that make sense? And it's okay if other people are listening, but I'm next to him. That's the point. Does that make sense?
So I can't speak out about evil happening unless I'm there. Is that what you're saying?
no.
Is that what you're
That's what
implying?
I'm
It's
saying,
restricted to only if you're there?
No,
I have to
if
finish
you
the whole
want
point.
to speak out against evil that you're not there, the point is it's not called al-amru bil ma'ruf wal nahy al munkar. It's called nasiha. Nasiha is a different thing now, advice. And when it came to nasiha, what did the Prophet say? How did he teach us? How did he teach us to give nasiha to the rulers?
Yes, من أراد أن ينصح لذي سلطان فلا يبديها علانية. Whoever wants to give نصيحة. Look,
Ibn Abbas, right?
نصيحة. I can't remember الله أعلم the narrator. He said فلا يبديها علانية. Don't say it in public. نصيحة. Look, he didn't say من أراد أن يأمر الأمير. Whoever wants to command the Amir. No, he says whoever wants to ينصح. Who wants to advise. So فلا يبديها.
But don't be surprised if
So
they
the
try to
Prophet
weaken it.
clearly
They
said-
try to weaken a hadith in Sahih Muslim.
So are you telling me that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself clearly said that if you're going to advise the ruler, do not do it in public?
Yeah.
But then you just mentioned now that when they did it in
Whoever
public.
wants to do nasiha. See the difference? If you want to do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, it's different. Two different things.
Okay,
You
translate,
get it?
translate.
If you want to do, sorry, yeah, if you want to command the good and forbid the evil, then you have to. Then there's a ruling, and if there's nasiha, which is advice, there's another ruling. So the point here is that a lot of these ignorant people is that they get it confused between these two things. This is something called nasiha, and this is something called amr bil ma'ruf.
But
This
in
is
practice,
advice,
how are those two
it's
things
command.
different?
So you
Exactly,
can-
in
so
practice. Very
so-
good question. This is something, by the way, anyone who wants to listen to this, there's a explanation by Ibn Taymiyyah. He talks about this a lot in a lot of his books, Minhaj Sunnah Nabawiyyah and Majmu' Fatawi, check it, found it a lot. But also Sheikh Salih al-Sheikh in his Aqidatul Wasatiyah, his explanation of it, he explains it in a very good way. What are the practical implications of this? Al-Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar only happens when you see something evil in front of you. Right now, I see what my brother, someone who I have authority over.
I keep reminding these people who don't
Command
understand
good-
because the Prophet said man ra'a.
Yeah, the Prophet
Yes,
sallallahu alaihi
just
wasallam
keep-
said it. Yeah,
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said whoever sees.
whoever sees.
Whoever sees.
Or sama', and the scholars they put on top of seeing, which is sama' muhaqqan, you hear it happening next to you.
Yeah.
For example, I hear my brother listening to music.
Yeah.
I say to him, stop listening to music right then and there.
Yeah.
Even if I'm in the public.
Yeah.
And someone says, advise me in private, bro. No, you're doing it in public. I'm going to tell you to stop doing it in public. Why? Because
The mic.
oh, sorry. Because the benefit here is not just for you. I'm not going to command the good and forbid the evil just for you. I'm commanding the good and forbidding the evil because the evil that's there and it's going to affect the people around you and you as well.
Yeah.
You get it? Because so I can see it right then and there. طيب, that's command the good and forbid the evil. What about if I hear my brother listen to music? Do I go and say, bro, why listen to music? I heard you didn't. لا, خلاص, it's done. The evil's done now. That's when nasiha comes into place now. You go and advise him in private. Same thing. Or for another implication is that when the commanding the good and forbidding the evil is to do with the evil itself. It's not to do with the person. There is no. I don't have to. If I see that he's drinking alcohol, for example, I take the alcohol, I break it. I'm talking about someone who I have authority over.
Yeah.
I take it and I break it and then after that I say, yeah, that was harsh, right?
Yeah.
After that, bro, man, come on, don't drink alcohol. It's not good. That
That's
was harsh
nasiha.
there. This is nasiha. Two different places, different bab.
Okay, so let me.
That's
And
a
there's
good
many
example.
different
That's a good
And
example.
just like, can I just mention something here?
Go
If
on.
we was to even, for argument's sake, if we was to say that hadith, من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع, that the issue of ru'ya is not something that restricts it, it's unrestricted, yeah. Then we could say, if we was to say that you wanted to use that hadith, just generally speaking, and you don't want to do this categorization of nasiha and enjoying the good and the evil being two separate things, then if that was the case, then the most we could say about that narration is that it's am, that it's general, or that it's unrestricted. But we have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, so many of them, that show us how to deal with a ruler specifically.
In different way.
Okay, and that's why it's really important to mention. So I'm just going to mention some narrations here, because remember, at the end of the day, what did he say at the beginning? He said the Muslim's job
Submit.
is to submit.
Submit to
Does
the
that make
text.
sense? To how Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell us to deal with these
But
situations.
all of the text collectively, not
So
just
like-
specific ones that have been picked
Look,
out.
no,
You
no,
have to
no.
look at the whole picture.
Of course, I'm bringing you the whole picture. Look at this. First, we have a hadith in Sahih of Imam Muslim. Okay, a companion came to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, "Ya Nabi Allah." He said, "أرأيت إن قامت علينا أمراء يسألون حقهم ويمنعون حقنا." He said that, "O Messenger of Allah, if you see," he's asking, what should we do in a situation where there are leaders that come? They are asking us to give them their rights, but they are preventing us from our rights. These are oppressive rulers, okay? فَمَا تَأْمُرُونَا, what would you advise us? What would you command us to do? The Prophet turned away from him. He asked again, the Prophet turned away from him. Does that make sense? Until the Prophet answered him, he said, اسمعوا, he said, hear them. وَأَطِيعُوا أُبَيْدًا فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْهِمْ مَا حُمِّلُوا وَعَلَيْكُمْ مَا حُمِّلْتُمْ. The Prophet said, hear them and obey them, because it's upon them that which they do, and it's upon you that which you do. As in, Allah is going to ask them about not fulfilling their right on you, but Allah is going to ask you about not fulfilling your right on them. Does that make sense? Which is to hear and obey them in good. Does that make sense? As long as they're not commanding you to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you hear and obey them. Even if it's oppressive to you. Even if they're taking your wealth, they're taking your money away, but you heard them obey them. The Prophet said in another narration, he said, Isma'u
the
wa
Prophet
ati'u.
said that?
Yeah, the Prophet said. The Prophet said,
Sallallahu
Isma'u wa ati'u wa nistu'mila alaykum abdul habashi. The Prophet said, again, the hadith is what? Narrated by Imam in Sahih Imam Bukhari. He said, hear them and obey them. Your ruler, if he's placed over you, even if he is an Abyssinian slave. Pay attention. The Prophet
A slave couldn't be a leader.
the Prophet didn't say here Abyssinian slave because of racism. Billah, some people think. The Prophet said it because the leader of the Muslims has to be from Quraysh and he has to be a free man. So it could have been Indian. It could have been Chinese. It could have been Japanese. It could have been Norwegian. Does that make sense? The point is that he is a man who's not from Quraysh and he's not a free man. So he is not fit for the role, which means if he's not fit for the role, he couldn't have got into the role from any other reason except for tyranny, oppression, which means
ghalaba.
Ghalaba. There are 4 ways a person can become a leader of the Muslims. 3 of them are permissible and 1 of them is haram. But if he gets into power, he's your ruler now. Does that make sense? So this is a man which is oppressive. This is a man he spilled blood to get in there. Who's going to hand it to him? He took over. He spilled blood. He fought his way to the top. Does that make sense? He's not fit for the job. The Prophet said, what did he say? He said, Isma'u wa ati'u. Another hadith, the Prophet said,
Ubad bin Samit. What does that mean? Hear and obey.
Hear and obey. Another hadith, Ubad, and this is Bukhari and Muslim, both these narrations I gave to you. One was in Muslim, one was in Bukhari. The next hadith, Ubad bin Samit radiallahu anhu, he said, Baya'na Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ala sam'i wa ta'a fil usri wal yusr. He said, we gave pledge of allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that we'll obey him, we will hear him and obey him, okay? In difficulty and in good. That's the Prophet sallallahu right? And then he goes on to carry on what we gave, the pledge. This is the pledge the companions gave the Prophet. وَعَلَىٰ أَنْ لَا تُنَازِعَ الْأَمْرَ أَهْلَهُ. And we will not, what? We will not go against those who are placed in authority over us. We will not go against those who are placed in authority over us. Again, this hadith is muttafaqun alayh, Bukhari Muslim, Al-Bukhari Muslim, but the hadith is in the Sahih Imam Muslim. I just want people to understand that when they go against this, they're going against all of these texts, okay, which are in Al-Bukhari Muslim. 2 books that the Ummah has what? Unanimously agreed upon. Does that make sense? Okay, look, we have another hadith. The Prophet said, ثلاث خصال لا يغل عليهن قلب مسلم أبدا. Okay, there are 3 characteristics that the heart of the Muslim is not deceived with, ever. Does that make sense? إخلاص العمل لله. Sincerity with regards to the actions for Allah. ومناصحة ولاة الأمر ولزوم الجماعة. The Prophet said, وَمُنَاصَحَةُ وُلَاةِ الْأَمْرِ. Nasiha to the rulers. And he already explained the hadith. How's it done? It's done in private, so on and so forth, not to make it publicly. Does that make sense?
This hadith was narrated by Muslim Imam Ahmad. It's hadith حسن لغيره for من أراد أن ينصح لذي سلطان. Whoever wants to advise.
In the Muslim Imam Ahmad. This was also in the Muslim Imam Ahmad, yeah? بِإِسْنَادٍ صَحِيحٍ. Again, look, another hadith where the Prophet said, مَنْ خَرَجَ. Look at this hadith. Look how serious the Prophet said, "Man kharaja min at-ta'ati wa faraqa al-jama'a famata mitatan jahiliya." The Prophet said, whoever came out from the obedience of the ruler and he left the body of the Muslims, mata mitatan jahiliya, he will die the death of jahiliya, or die the death of ignorance. Again, the hadith is in the Sahih of Imam Muslim. Another hadith, the Prophet said, "Man ra'a min amirihi shay'an yakrahuhu falyasbir." The Prophet said, anyone who sees from his ruler something that he dislikes, be patient. The Prophet is telling you, be patient here. It's not bootlicking. The Prophet was not a bootlicker, wal-'iyadhu billah.
What I was going to say is that I've heard people say that anyone who says not to speak out against an oppressive ruler is a bootlicker.
The Prophet said it. The Prophet said it. They should be careful and fear Allah. And then the Prophet said, فَإِنَّهُ look at this, look how serious. The Prophet said, فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ فَارَقَ الْجَمَاعَ شِبْرًا. Anyone who leaves the body of the Muslims by a handspan. This is a handspan. This is a handspan. Okay? What the Prophet say? فَمَاتَ مِيتَةً جَاهِلِيَةً. He will die death for ignorance. Again, hadith is muttafaqun alayh, al-Bukhari, Muslim. It's not something that we put out of our back pockets. I've got more narrations, so you have to be patient.
We can't go through all of them.
No, we're going to go for all of them. You know why? Because we hear people's opinions and emotions all day. We have politicians talking about this topic all day. I don't know what the Prophet ﷺ said. I'm sick and tired of hearing what people say besides Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I don't even bring me what a scholar says. Whether you misunderstood the scholar or not, or whether you took it out of context or not, or whether you misunderstood or not, that's not my point. What did Rasulullah say? So today we're going to hear the sunnah of the Prophet. Does that make sense on this issue? We have to hear what the Prophet said. Look at this next hadith. The Prophet said what? وعن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من خلع يدا من طاعة, anyone who withdraws his hand from the obedience to the Muslim ruler, okay, لقي الله يوم القيامة لا حجة له. He will meet Allah on the day of judgment. He's got no proof. He's got no evidence. All your opinions that you bring, all your dalil that you bring, there's no proof. You know why? You're not allowed. The Prophet made it so clear that you're not allowed to do this. He could be, and you're going to see more hadith that I'm going to mention in a second, so you can see how evil these rulers are. Because none of us are saying that they're good people. Some of them are. Some of them might be evil. I don't care. That's none of my business. Does that make sense?
That's really important point.
Really
is that
important.
it's irrelevant
It's
whether
irrelevant
they are good or bad. It's irrelevant.
Because the Prophet told us how to deal with it in a different way. Because you asked earlier, you said they're the real problem, right? We're going to come to what the problem is in a second. We're going to come to it, inshallah ta'ala. But first, let's take what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to do. He said, what? La hujjata lah. To say, oh, this Imam said this is not hujjah. To say that Imam is not hujjah. What the Prophet said is hujjah. That's what proof is. Does that make sense? And look at this. He said, وَمَنْ مَاتَ وَلَيْسَ فِي عُنُقِهِ بَيْعَةٌ مَاتَ مِيتَةً جَاهِلِيَةً. The Prophet ﷺ said, and anyone who dies and on his neck is not a pledge of allegiance, he will die the death of ignorance. Against hadith is in what? The Sahih Imam Muslim. The one I mentioned previously is muttafaqun alayh. Look at this hadith. The Prophet Hudayfa asked Prophet, he said to him, he said, Ya Rasulullah, inna kunna fi jahiliyati wa shar, faja'ana Allahu bihadha al-khayr. We used to what? Be living in evil. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He brought us good. فَهَلْ بَعْدَ هَذَا الْخَيْرِ مِنْ شَرٍ. After it's good that we live in, we will see evil. قَالَ نَعَمْ. The Prophet said, yes, you will see evil again. فَقُلْتُ هَلْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ شَرٍ مِنْ خَيْرٍ. Would there be after this evil that we see good? The Prophet said, نعم. Yes, there will be good. وَفِيهِ دَخَلٍ. But it won't be a pure good. There'll be a taint in it. There'll be a smoke in it. It won't be a pure good. قُلْتُ وَمَا دَخَلُهُ. What is this taint in the good that's going to come back, Ya Rasulullah? He said, قَوْمٌ يَسْتَنُونَ بِغَيْرِ سُنَّتي. People that are upon a sunnah other than my sunnah. وَيَهْدُونَ بِغَيْرِ هَدِي. They're upon a guidance other than my guidance. تَعْرِفُ مِنْهُمْ وَتُنْكِرُ. فَقُلْتُ هَلْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ الْخَيْرِ مِنَ الشَّرِّ. After that good, will we see evil again? The Prophet said, نَعَمْ دُعَاتٌ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ جَهَنَّمْ. Look what the Prophet said. You asked what the evil is. The Prophet said, دُعَاتٌ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ جَهَنَّمْ. It is people giving da'wah at the gates of the hellfire. He didn't say it's the rulers. Look at that. And the same hadith, different riwayah I'm about to show to you, the Prophet describes the rulers, some of them, their hearts are the hearts of shayateen. Can you get a worse description than that? Can you get a worse description than their hearts are the hearts? The hearts.
Just because one problem was mentioned here doesn't mean it's the only problem.
One
and
second.
Other things aren't problems.
Akhi, then you bring me a dalil. You bring me a dalil for that, because I'm bringing you a dalil from Sahih Muslim.
No, I'm saying you're saying the Prophet said this is a problem, right?
Yeah.
He didn't say this is the only problem. As in you're saying that the Prophet didn't say leaders.
The context is.
Therefore,
the context is it the rulers? You asked that question. In the hadith of the Prophet, about to mention the rulers, he didn't say they were the problem. Despite another narration showing that those rulers are evil. The same hadith, please correct me if I'm wrong. The same hadith, different riwayah, about to mention to you. The Prophet said, قُلُوبُهُمْ قُلُوبُ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Their hearts are the hearts of devils. في جسمان الإنس. In the body of human beings, they have the hearts of shayateen.
So we bring
these devils in the same hadith, different riwayah. The Prophet described the rulers like that. But what did he say? Du'atun ala abwabi jahannam. The evil is the people that are at the gates of the hellfire. Man ajabahum ilayha qadhafuhu fiha. Whoever responds to their da'wah, he will fall into the hellfire with them. Okay? And then look what the Prophet said. Look what Hudayfa said. He said to him, he said, Ya Rasulullah, فما ترى إن أدركني ذلك. What do you see? What do you command me to do if I see this time? If I see the people giving da'wah and according to the gates of the hellfire? He said, تلزم جماعة المسلمين وإمامهم. The Prophet said, hold firm to the
إمامهم.
Yeah, barakallah fi. تلزم جماعة المسلمين وإمامهم. The Prophet said, hold on firm to the jama'ah of the Muslims, the body of the Muslims and their ruler. So in the hadith, the Prophet told you that the problem is what? The people giving da'wah. Why? Because they're calling to desires. They're calling to innovation. They're calling to what? The madhab of the Khawarij. The belief of the Khawarij, as we're going to substantiate in a bit, inshallah ta'ala, if we get the time. Okay? They're calling to all of these other views and ideologies. Other than the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, they are du'at ala abwabi jahannam. They're calling to the hellfire. They're calling to one of the groups of the 72 sects the Prophet says is going to go into hellfire. Does that make sense? Ahlu sunnati wal jama'ah. Falzam jama'at al-muslimina wa imamahum. Hold, luzum, means stick to, don't leave the body of the Muslims and their ruler. Now, who are these rulers? Let's go to the hadith what? Muttafaqun alayh, al-Bukhari Muslim. Let's go to the narration that's in Muslim, yeah? But the Prophet, what did he say? He said, the Hudayfa asked him the same question. The Prophet said, he said, يَكُونُ بَعْدِ أَئِمَّةٌ. لا يهتدون بهدايا. After me there will be rulers. They are not on my guidance. ولا يستنون بسنتي. They are on a sunnah other than my sunnah. سيقوم فيهم رجال قلوبهم قلوب الشياطين في جثمان الإنس. They will, amongst these leaders, there will be men, their hearts are like the hearts of the devils. في جثمان الإنس, in the body of human beings. Akhi, can you get a description worse than that? Worse than that. Okay, so what did Hudayfa say? He said, كيف أصنع يا رسول الله? What should we do in that situation? In أدركت ذلك. If I look, Hudayfa's so smart. He's asking the right questions for us. What should we do when we see these rulers? Hearts of the hearts of devils, doing all of this oppression, evil. What should we do in that situation? The Prophet, تسمعوا وتطيع. You hear them and you obey them. للأمير, the ruler. وإن ضرب ظهرك, if he strikes your back. وأخذ مالك, and he snatches your wealth. فاسمع, hear him. وأطيع, obey him. The Prophet said, hear him and obey him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is what the Prophet told us to do. Does that make sense? We've got other narrations.
How many more are you gonna? Because we
hear the sunnah today.
No, of course. But I'm saying, obviously, Charles Bhai is a podcast. It's a discussion, isn't it? Not a lecture.
Abu Bakr, hear the sunnah of the Prophet.
I'm not denying.
Okay,
we can.
another hadith.
I can take.
Another
I
hadith.
can start
Another hadith.
reciting ayat and say.
Beautiful. We love to hear the Quran. We love to hear
Should I
it.
start reciting?
After the sunnah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا
Why
لا
does that come
تقدموا
first?
بين يدي الله ورسوله.
The point I'm making is that we understand the point.
Abu Bakr, wallahi, let me finish.
How many? Go on.
How many more?
I have a few more hadith.
Go, good.
No, akhi, this is good.
Let him go.
Akhi, hear the sunnah of the Prophet.
Fadl.
Okay. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhum, I heard the people that they were looking to go against Yazid ibn Muawiyah.
This is really, really important. This is actually one of the best examples.
Yeah, Yazid ibn Muawiyah is who? Yazid ibn Muawiyah is what? He's the conflict of Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu. What did Imam Ahmad say? He said, have you heard anyone from the Sunnah ever praise Yazid? Say they love Yazid? Does that make sense? So this is not a ruler that was fantastic. Does that make sense? So he heard the people that were going against him. He said that I heard the Prophet say, okay, يُنْسَبُ لِكُلِّ غَادِرٍ لِوَاءٌ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, that it's going to be fixed for every single betrayer, a specific banner on the day of judgment. And then what did he say? He said, وَإِنَّا قَدْ بَايَعْنَا هَذَا الرَّجُلِ عَلَى بَيْعٍ. He said we had given the pledge of this pledge of allegiance to this person according to the bayt على بيع الله ورسوله, according to the conditions of Allah and His Messenger, the way that He told us to give bayt. He said وَإِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ غَدْرًا, and I don't know any betrayal أعظم من أن يبايع رجل, other than you give pledge of allegiance to a man على بيع الله ورسوله, according to the conditions of Allah and His Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, ثم ينسب له القتال, and then you what? You go out to fight him. Then you go out what? To rebel against him. Okay? وإني لا أعلم أحدا منكم خلعه ولا بايع في هذا الأمر إلا كانت الفيصل بيني وبينه. And there is no, and anyone from amongst you who goes out there and he does this, he goes to rebel against the ruler, speak out against the ruler. He said, there's nothing between me and him. Me and him, we've got nothing to do with each other. Ibn Umar, radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. Does that make sense? He said, we've got nothing to do with them. Another hadith. And what? The hadith is Al-Bukhari. Another hadith, yeah? The Prophet said, Man atakum. The Prophet said, Man atakum wa amrukum jami'un ala rajulin wahid. Look at the hadith. Look at it for the people who want to rebel, who want to uprise, who want to bring out. We've already established that these rulers are, that some of these rulers are evil, right?
Yeah.
We've already established their hearts are evil, right? So let's bring another ruler. Look what the Prophet said. He said, Man atakum wa amrukum jami'un ala rajulin wahidin. Anyone who comes to you whilst you are all united under one leader, right? Yuridu an yashukka asakum. And the person who's trying to come now and overtake this ruler, he's trying to what? Destroy your solidarity. Does that make sense? أو يفرق جماعتكم. And he's trying to destroy your unity. The Prophet said, فَقْتُلُهُ, kill him. Anyone who tries to, you've got one ruler, he could be evil. Doesn't matter, we've already taken narrations. Some of them are hearts of devils. But you notice, at least the Muslims are united. At least there's not bloodshed in the streets. At least people are not being raped in the streets. At least there's not what constant looting. Wallahi, look at anyone who has insaf. Look at Yemen today. Is it better today with this old ruler or without?
Yeah. No, so many examples.
Is it better? Syria, hatta the rulers are kafir.
No, but people would say that
Bashar al-Assad's-
Yemen is because of Saudi, they're bombing it, they're
Bro,
destroying
it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Prophet said,
Why did it happen?
Say that again?
Why did that happen? He said,
Yeah, even Saudi Arabia-
happened like that, but why did it happen? It happened because the people rebelled.
Because they rebelled. Does that make sense? And I'm not here
So the people are to blame for them being.
for rebelling. Of course, they are to
rebelling,
blame
of
for
course.
rebelling. They
Not
disobeyed
all
the
of the people who rebelled.
people rebelled. Yes, the people
And those
rebelled.
people who called them to rebel.
And the last
Isn't it? Correct me if I'm
last
wrong.
hadith,
Is-
last
is-
hadith.
Isn't that the
Akhi
same?
billah
As
alayk,
in-
last
as in-
hadith.
as in
Last
the
hadith.
concept
Last
of
hadith. Last
people
hadith. Akhi,
who
last hadith,
rebelled.
and then I'll be quiet. Look, last hadith. The Prophet said, "Innahu yusta'malu alaykum umara'u fata'rifuna wa tunkirun." That you're going to have rulers. There's going to be things of them that are good, things of them you're going to reject. Things of them you're going to reject. Does that make sense? فَمَنْ كَرِهَ فَقَدْ بَرِئَ. Anyone who dislikes, sorry, two more narrations, yeah? Anyone who rejects what this ruler does, okay? فَبَرِئَ. Okay, anyone who dislikes it, فَبَرِئ. He's free from him, okay? وَمَنْ أَنْكَرَ فَقَدْ سَلِمَ. Whoever rejects what he does, okay? Who does inkar of it, what is it? سَلِمَ. He's safe. وَلَكِنْ مَنْ رَضِيَ وَتَابَ. Anyone who's pleased with what he does, and he follows what he does, okay, that's the one who's got a problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قالوا يا رسول الله ألا نقاتلهم? Shall we not fight these rulers, the ones that we don't like what they do and they're doing wrong things? The Prophet said, لا ما صلوا. No, as long as they pray. Last hadith. Huh?
ما صلوا.
ما صلوا بارك الله فيك. Hadith Sahih Muslim. Last hadith. The Prophet
Can I
said,
comment on the hadith though? One second. He said there's some people that use the hadith to say that we have to hate. You have to hate what the ruler does, and if you don't rebel against them, that means you come under you're pleased with them. It doesn't mean that. And if I don't rebel against them, it doesn't mean I'm pleased with the evil that's happening. It means I'm against the evil. I hate it. I hate it. But I'm not, and I'm not pleased with it. But it doesn't necessarily mean I have to rebel. No, ma sallu, as long as they pray.
because of all the other previous texts that tell us we're not allowed to rebel, right? Look, last one. إِذَا بُويِعَ الْخَلِيفَتَيْن. The Prophet said, if pledge of allegiance is given to two khalifas. So now, you actually have two rulers. First hadith that I mentioned, the Prophet said, kill the one who tries to destroy your unity, right? Kill him, right? The Prophet said that, right? He might even be a righteous man. He might even be a guy, what? That's on Deen. But he's what? He's going to divide the Muslims. He's going to create more problems, bloodshed. People's lives are going to be spilt now. Safety, security is going to go, right? People are not going to be able to pray in the masajid. The Jum'ah is going to go. Does that make sense? Lots of problems are going to happen. So the Prophet said, what? He said, kill him, okay? Now, what if إِذَا بُويَعَ الْخَلِيفَتَيْن? Now there are two rulers. One guy's already established his khilaf. He's established authority. The Prophet said, فَقْتُلُوا الْآخَرْ مِنْهُمَا. The second one who came, kill him. He said, kill him. He already got leadership. He said, kill him. Why? Because he's going against the Wallahi. Firstly, every hadith I brought was in Al-Bukhari Muslim. And if I think I brought one hadith from the Musnad Imam Ahmed. One hadith from the Musnad Imam Ahmed. Every other hadith I brought is in Bukhari Muslim. Anyone who goes against Wallahi is going against what? He's going against the speech of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Wallahi, for that person, فَلْيَحْذَرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ. The Prophet said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, let them take a warning, those who oppose the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ, that a fitna will strike them. What fitna? أي فتنة هذه? Imam Ahmed said, what fitna is this? He said, Ar-Ridda. Apostasy. You know, people are upset about Umar Suleiman today because what he done, and the shirk and the pagan act and whatnot. It doesn't start like that. You know what his bid'ah was? Speaking against the rulers. Amongst many other innovations. But one of his early innovations was what? Speaking against the rulers. And look where he is now. If you're disobeying the Prophet in that, tomorrow you're going to disobey something else, until you leave the fold of Islam.
You were going to mention something? Do you remember
I was
what it
going to say the concept of people rebelling, as we mentioned, that some of these countries that have fallen apart, if you trace it back to its origin, like the way people were living before and the way people were living after the rebellion, it's obviously a stark contrast. So we can say in a sense that the cause of it was the rebellion. I was going to ask, isn't it a bit similar with regards to Hussein radiallahu anh? Isn't the people called him to come and like resolve a matter or whatever have you, and as a result of the people calling him is what led to that situation?
Wallahu a'lam. I've never heard a scholar say that.
What was your question?
I just heard it.
I didn't understand it.
So you know how what happened with Hussein radiallahu anh when he went to settle the situation that was happening. It wasn't that he just went of his own accord, of his own volition. It's that the people there actually called him to come over. Do you know what I'm saying? They'll write to him, or like somebody would go over and say, "Listen, Hussein, we need you," etc. And they essentially called him over. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm saying, does that fall into that as well?
I don't understand the question.
Okay.
But just to mention on the issue of Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, okay, number one, the scholars mention that firstly, he couldn't have done khuruj because he never gave bay'ah in the first place. Does that make sense? And if he didn't give bay'ah, and by the way, we're not saying that he was right, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in that anyway. Does that make sense? We're not saying he was right in that anyway. He was what? He was a mujtahid. So for him, he's either between one reward or two rewards. Does that make sense? But the rest of the Sahaba were what? Against him in that. Does that make sense? They were against him and they advised him not to do that. At the end of the day, the Sahabi of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if his speech goes against or his action goes against what the Prophet said, are you gonna take him against what the Prophet said? If two Sahaba did it, or two Sahaba said it, or three Sahaba said it, or 20 Sahaba said it, or 100 companions said it, or 1,000 companions said it, is that enough to go against one hadith of the Prophet Sahih? Not that I'm saying 1,000 Sahaba.
If 1,000 Sahabis did go against something, you'd think that they had another narration that
say that again.
There was some sort of understanding, something was understood there.
So bring it. Where is this hidden narration?
No, I'm saying
where is this magical narration?
Where
If the Sahaba did go against,
no, I'm saying if
hypothetically,
I'm saying if they did, so bring the narration, but they didn't. That's my point.
Okay, calm.
So there is no narration.
Just because a lot's been mentioned in a very small span of time. So before we move on to the next point, just a quick, very, very, very quick recap. Okay, so we mentioned obviously the narration where the Prophet said, "Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you see an evil, stop it with your hands. If you can't do that, stop it with your tongue. If you can't do that, hate it in your heart." You're saying that comes under enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. But that specifically mentioned if you see, meaning if you're there, it happens in your presence, then no matter who's around, whatever's happening, whether it's the leader. So, for example, if, let's just say,
a
leader was walking down the road and you saw him and he was, smoking weed, you would have no issues telling him there and then that weed is haram. You can't be smoking that weed. Put the weed out.
Generally, yes. But obviously, commanding the good and forbidding the evil is according to the benefit and harm. Sometimes you'll see that it will be more harmful to command the good and forbid the evil, and sometimes it wouldn't be. And if you see that it is more beneficial, then yes.
If you felt that in that situation it was more beneficial,
then yes,
that is something that you would be allowed to do. But if, for example, someone came to you and said to you, you know what? I heard that that same lead that leader's been smoking weed on the roads. Yeah, like I thought, like he was seen on the roads. Like you wouldn't come out and make a video saying, brothers and sisters, this guy he's smoking weed. We need to go against him. This, that, and blah. That's not enjoying the good and forbidding the evil.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's nasiha. But that comes under nasiha. But
nasiha has to be in private.
Exactly.
As the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right?
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith of Muslim Ahmad, and it's Hasan li-ghayrihi, as Shaykh al-Albani said. But Imam Shafi'i said, if you advise me in public, then this is fadiha, not nasiha. You have exposed me. Yani if you do nasiha in public. So that's what it is, yeah.
Okay. And so you also mentioned you mentioned a lot of narrations, and the crux of those narrations and the real message behind them is that when a leader comes and you got a leader over you, you have to hear and obey him. Whether he's an oppressive tyrant, whether he whips you, whether he takes your wealth, and this is the Prophet.
Whether his heart is the heart, you never have to explain whether his heart is the heart of the devil.
And the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said this to us. Like, I don't even feel like, even though my role is to, play I don't feel like me even doing that would even be productive right now, because it's just there's so many ahadith to even carry on going down line of arguing.
There's more.
It just seems so nonsensical that I'm not even going to do it.
But people will do it. There are people, and that's why like you have to.
I think it would be good, like maybe get Jimmy or someone, like on the screen, as you mentioned, just bring up the narration, the reference, bang, narration, the reference, bang, narration,
I've
reference,
got
bang.
Translations in English.
And even the one you mentioned where it was said that, if I'm not mistaken, to the closest wording, that one of the greatest jihads is a word of truth against a tyrannical ruler. You're saying that the word that was used is with, meaning inda, which indicates
that's how you know
closeness.
Sheikh Yasin. That's how you know they should have signed up to courses Al-Ajrumiyah. They would have learned the dhuruf in Babul Mansubat.
So inda, it shows closeness. So even though, because I've had that conversation with people myself previously before, where I've mentioned all of these, and they've brought, what about this hadith? Okay, number one, I've used literally as he just did, went through all of them, and you're still saying, but what about this? So
that's what desires, right?
That's what I'm saying. But then I'm saying, even that, That's not for you.
Yeah.
That's for me. I'm saying, but so you're saying if nasiha happens, it should be done
Private.
in private. That's advising. Okay, cool. Okay, now just a question. So look, like there have been times where, for example, let's just say there's Salafi scholars, and the ruler has come to visit them, or he's in their presence and stuff like that, and they know that he's doing haram. He's got riba. He's allowing this. He's allowing this in his countries. All his haram is that he's allowing. Why don't they? Because he's there in front of them. So why don't they speak out against him there? Why don't they tell him not to do there?
Two things here. Number one, we need to have good thoughts of the scholars. The scholars, one of the things that corrupts a group of people or a community is when they have bad assumptions about the scholars. Why are you assuming that they didn't advise him? He wasn't there. You get it?
Otherwise, they would be in jail like the real scholars who
No,
are in jail.
necessarily.
What do you mean real scholars are in jail?
Wallah,
Firstly, is Sheikh Badr al-Utaybi, he's a real scholar.
Of course.
We agree upon it, right?
Inshallah.
Scholar of the Sunnah, one of the foremost students of Ibn Baz, rahimahullah.
Mm-hmm.
You know he got arrested because he warned against the whole WWE thing?
Some certain stuff.
Something like that. He warned against it. He didn't speak out against the ruler. He followed the Sunnah. He still got arrested. You know that, right?
He spoke out against the issue, not the ruler.
And he got arrested. And he still says, "Here and obey the ruler."
And he still says it.
And he spent a year in jail. He's a real scholar.
But what about all the real scholars who are in jail right now because of the
Who
fact
said
that they
they're
were
real
speaking
scholars?
out against
Why
him?
are these scholars you're talking about, bro?
No, they're not necessarily going to be in jail if they speak and advise the ruler privately. Zayd ibn Thabit, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when the Khawarij, they came to him and said, why don't you advise Uthman? It's hadith in Bukhari. Why don't you advise Uthman? He said, do you think I'm only going to do it in front of you? I advise him in public. I'm not going to be private. I'm not going to be the first person to open this door of evil, which is to advise the ruler in public, which is to speak out against the ruler. I'm not going to be the first person to open that evil door, right? Or that door. So that shows, and it doesn't, just because you don't see the scholar advising him, doesn't mean he didn't advise him. So that was those two things. The first thing was just that they could be, you have to have good thoughts, they might be advising. And number two, if they are advising, they don't have to advise him in public. You understand? And to say that if they are advising him, then they'll put him in prison. That's not necessarily the case. You know that there was stories of Sheikh Ibn Baz calling the prince or telling him to cancel certain things that was happening. I've personally witnessed a brother. Wallah, I don't know if I should say his name. If you want to say it, you can ask him. Ustadh Abu Taymiyyah, hafidhahullah ta'ala.
The prince.
He went in front of a prince and loud in front of everyone was telling him about evil that was happening. About the prince, telling him about the evil that was happening, saying, why don't you change it? In front of him though, in his house.
Evil that was happening there and then.
No, not there and then. He's telling him, advising, telling him about evil.
But he was in front of the leader.
He was in front of him, telling him about something. He wasn't
was
advising the
giving him
ruler.
nasiha.
He wasn't advising the ruler. He wasn't advising him, the prince. He was telling him about, can you change it? Tell him to change it. The point is that he done it right in front of him. You get it? It doesn't mean it's scary.
Okay, so
I would tell you special.
I was there in the house.
Just to clarify, you're
nervous? You think you're gonna get back?
You know, you said if you see the evil, if you see the evil, right, in front of you, does that mean if you see the person, even though the evil's not happening there and then, you can still advise him about the evil that you know he's doing? Or is it that he has to be doing that evil there and then for you to advise him? So for example, let's say there's a leader and he allows riba interest in his country, in his banks. Is it that if I see him at a bank signing a contract that there I advise him? Or if I see him on the road, but I know he's got contracts and stuff, that I can advise him regardless whether he's doing it in that moment or not? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. If he's the contract time, it's command with the good for the evil. When you see him in the streets, it's nasiha. You do it privately.
And also, can I just go back to the issue of the scholars? Yeah, well, like it doesn't make sense to me how a person can accuse these scholars whose beards have turned grey, who are.
But are they not on a payroll? Are they not getting funded by governments?
Let's contextualize this. Yeah. So let's Sheikh Fawzan, who's 80+-year-old man, he's on the edge of his grave. Do you understand? He's standing over the edge of his grave. What is money going to benefit him right now? What's money going to benefit?
Grandkids.
Say that again. He can't have children, man. The Sheikh can't. Hafidhullah ta'ala. He can't have children. He's got no children. What's money going to benefit him? What's it going to benefit his lineage? He don't have a lineage. The Sheikh don't have children.
But that's just assumptions as well.
Yeah.
What are you saying? It's just assumptions based on what you're saying.
Not just that.
Based on the apparent though, right?
One second. Do you know, not just that, Sheikh Fawzan, may Allah preserve him, was on live TV, bro. And he was speaking against the Saudi Independence Day. They cut him live on TV, bro. Yeah. Put the video clip in, Aman. They cut him live on TV, bro. And he's refuting the evil. And that's something that the government's behind. He just what? Don't mention them by name.
So one second, yeah? Just so I can get this straight. Let me ask you guys both just yes or no questions, yeah? So you're telling me that you guys wouldn't speak out publicly refuting the leaders, generally speaking. Like, you wouldn't make a video right now saying the leaders are X, Y, Z, did bad, did this, that. No, you wouldn't do that.
Do I want the curse of Allah?
Okay, no.
Look at all the
I
narrations
said
mentioned.
yes, no.
I know, but
You wouldn't, right?
no, of course not.
So does that then necessitate that you love the leaders and you think that they're good and that what they're doing is okay?
Let me make it very clear right now.
Nope.
Yeah, Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, their position.
Because sometimes it seems like that. It seems like the reason why you're quiet is because you've got this love and admiration.
Bro,
and
we just
the reason
said,
why is
we
because
just
the
they're just so
hadith.
lovely
bro,
people.
The reason why is because submitting to
Such
the
lovely,
hadith.
not so
yeah,
lovely.
it's admiration for that hadith. And these same hadith have mentioned that some of these rulers, قلوبهم قلوب الشياطين.
So just because you don't rebuke them doesn't necessitate that you support them.
No,
Exactly.
not at all. It's that we support the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Let me just mention right now, Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, their position is between two extremes. We don't speak out against the rulers, nor do we praise them and suck up to them or try to have relationships with them. Ahlul Sunnah's position is in the middle. What do? We make dua for them. That's what Ahlul Sunnah does. Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, this is the ijma'at of the Salaf as-Salih. Okay, you don't speak
But
out.
isn't that a bit of a cop out? Like, I'm just gonna sit there making
Akhi, what
dua
do you
while
mean cop out? It's
the
hadith.
real.
Akhi, it's hadith. 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 Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. It's hadith of the Prophet ﷺ.
Sallallahu alaihi
Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Sunnah.
I can't go against those narrations that you mentioned, and like that's pretty clear.
And so now the discussion needs to come to, so what's the problem? Because that's the initial, that's the other shubha that you gave.
I
at the
think
beginning.
there's one more, but I don't know if that's going to make it too long.
Go
But
on.
in one of the narrations you mentioned, at the end of it, it said, or like as long as he prays, or like if he's a
Let's not
Muslim
go.
ruler.
That's a separate issue.
Is that a whole different
That's separate-
discussion?
that's a separate
Whether
issue
the
because-
ruler is Muslim in the first place.
No, that's a separate issue because we don't deny that these narrations are talking about a Muslim ruler. Okay. As for a disbeliever, a ruler is a kafir. Then a person is haram for a kafir ruler. It's not allowed for a kafir ruler to be governing over the Muslims. But the Muslims can't overthrow them unless they have the ability. وَلَيْسَ وَاجِبٌ بِالْاقْتِدَارِ. There's no obligation without ability. Does that make sense? So if a person doesn't have, Allah said, "La tulqu bi-aydikum ila tahluka." Do not throw yourself into destruction with your own hands. Does that make sense? In Syria, the ruler Bashar al-Assad was a kafir. He's a kafir. Does that make sense? Who's going to differ on this? He's a kafir. Does that make sense? Yet the scholar said, don't uprise against him. Why? Because you don't have the ability. And can we not see the proof of that till today? It shocks me that people will still today argue, and it was good for the Syrians to uprise against their ruler, even though he was a kafir. Where today, Syrians are dead. Today, Syrians have been what? Widowed. Today, Syrians have been orphaned. Today, Syrian women are in prostitution in Lebanon. There was that documentary that they put out on Lebanon. Even in America, there's Syrian women doing prostitution. Why? Our Muslims is doing prostitution. Because they, as refugees, that's what they could do. Does that make sense? Actually, the whole country's been displaced. The Muslims within Syria who were there at the time were oppressed, right? Those who are there are oppressed even more. And did anything change? And this, do you understand?
So wait, just one more question I want to put to you.
But anyone who does takfir on the Muslim rulers on major sins, that's a different discussion.
Let's make that a completely different discussion. Okay, I won't mention that. But one thing I do want to mention, yeah, is say for example, like you mentioned all these countries. Say for example, the ruler, he's sending his soldiers to come, and they're gonna come and they're gonna take your women, like they're gonna force you into your house, take your women, rape them, murder them, kill your sons, whatnot. Are you, like as an individual, after hearing and obey, meaning if the ruler comes to my house and tells me that bring your wife outside, my soldiers are going to rape her, that I have to stand there and say, okay, cool, I hear and I obey? In that situation, am I as an individual allowed to stand up for my rights? Am I allowed to stand up for my rights? Stop them from taking my wife, fight the soldiers, and if they kill me, they kill me. I'm protecting my family. Like, or are you going to tell that man, okay, hear and obey, let the soldiers rape your wife? The ruler said it, you have to let it happen.
No, in that situation, a person has a right to defend his family. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, اسمع وأطع وإن ضرب ظهرك وأخذ مالك. If he hits you and he takes your wealth. As for your wife, then it's different. You defend your wife, you defend your family. But it doesn't mean that we're going to rebel now. Call people to go and rebel against them. And it's not to go out and fight, it's to defend what you have.
Defend. So you can stand there and say, you know what, you're not coming into my house, you're not taking my wife, you're not taking my kids.
Because you're not allowed to obey the ruler when he tells you to disobey Allah, right? Allah commanded you to take care of your family. They got rights over you. Does that make sense? And pay attention.
So
again,
on an individual level.
Pay attention. Man ra'a minkum munkaran. We do not command that. You see an evil in front of you. You see him trying to what? You see him trying to kill your children, to rape your wife. That's an evil you're seeing in front of you. You're seeing this evil in front of you. So that's a very straw man argument. In front of you, no one's
But
coming.
wouldn't everyone else imagine there's a group of people, the whole town's there watching?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be upon them now to, with their hands, come now and just start
So here's the
trying to
thing:
stop
to stop the
That's
evil,
Stop the evil.
but then
It's
stop,
different.
but then well, it's like parents. If your parents violate you and they tell you to do something haram, what do? You don't obey them in that. So you stop that evil, then straight away you go back to obeying them. I'm here now.
Oh, okay. It doesn't mean you just say now, you're not my dad now, you're
Yes,
my mum.
exactly.
I'm gonna,
Exactly.
overall this now. Okay.
Exactly.
Before we move on to the problem, I just want to break out of character a little bit and just mention a funny story. Obviously, in case Imran cut out the first story, now at least you get to hear my second story. I remember in Jahiliyyah, right before I was doing practicing, I think it was 2012, 13, somewhere along those lines, and there was Palestine protests that were happening. Now these times, like. So, it was a thing and, me and my friends, 'cause the reason why I'll mention this is, I'll get to it later, I can empathize where people come from. I can empathize why people feel like me protesting, me rebelling, me speaking, I'm making a difference. Like, I'm going out there and this is what activism, like I'm active. You guys are just sitting there in your homes, making da'ah, sleeping, resting. I'm doing something, right? You guys are not doing something. So I can understand where they're coming from. So I remember these times, look, we're not even praying. We're getting up to all sorts of madness. Like, one of the guys I know, he went there just because his girl was going there. He was going there to link his girl. It was a date for him. You understand? Literally. And like the rest of us, I'm not gonna lie, even though I wasn't practicing, I did feel a bit fired up. And I remember I was there, we were shouting, free Palestine, 2468, Israel is an apartheid state. All this, we were just shouting, chanting, like, and I remember it's so funny because actually, and I found it from my phone. It'd be good to put this on. There was a bus, and the bus got stuck in the crowds. And the driver just left the bus there. So everyone jumped into the bus. And then everyone's on the bus, we're on the bus. And at the back, you saw pulling merchants to open. So we somehow managed to get onto the roof. So there was about 20 of us on the roof of this bus. And this article, there's actually a picture, and I'm in the picture on the bus. And we're there screaming, shouting, and we're waving flags, and we're doing all this. And it was a protest outside the BBC headquarters, right? And we felt good. There was thousands of people. We were cheering, everything. And then we went home, and it was just like, and then we were kind of like, yeah, like
That was fun.
So what did we? So what did like?
What did we achieve today?
So what? Yeah, because then we were looking for it's going to be on the news, this, that, and it was nowhere. We were looking at BBC News. They just aired us.
I think that was a protest.
We
where
were literally
80,000 Muslims came from.
It was the biggest.
Yeah,
It was
80,000.
at that time.
80,000. No, maybe not Muslim, but 80,000 people came from all around the country. I remember people drove from Bradford. I remember
There was a Jewish guy who actually got onto the bus with us.
Yeah.
He was a rabbi. That's what made it
No
even sicker.
way.
He came the full thing.
But-
Sideburns, hat, clothing.
But look
That
at
is
this.
a scene,
But
bro.
look at this. I remember this protest were like, and the
Were you
protest.
there as well on the bus?
No,
with
no,
him?
no,
Oh,
I wasn't.
Okay.
I'm saying protests are done what is for lobbying and to kind of lobby or influence the government to be able to
Take action.
take action on your behalf, right, bro? They didn't even put it on TV. I remember I went to all the biggest
No, they
protest.
didn't. That's the thing.
I remember.
I was looking
sitting
forward to
there-
it because I thought I'm in the limelight here. Like I'm on the bus. Like they definitely, bro. Like they didn't give me any
Bro, but
airtime
aired
at all.
you, they
Bro,
There's
aired
one
you,
small
bro.
picture on the Independent, and like after zooming that much,
But if 80,000 people came and made Toba, and they quoted Tawheed, and they came with Tawheed, and they
dua
they
to
went
Allah
against
subhanahu wa
shirk. What happened? Well, akhi, Allah would have given them.
this is what I was gonna say is that
or they would have been more like to
you know how people say that, oh bro, that's a cop out. Like what do you mean? Oh yeah, stop your sins, make the.
But the Sahaba, if you look at the Sahaba, when the people they rebelled against Ali ibn Abi Talib,
Yeah.
and I think it was Hudayfa ibn Yaman, who was sitting in the masjid, him and another companion, I forgot the name. One of them, a man came in and he said, "Antum ha huna, wa qad akhraj an-nas al-amir." You guys are here and the people have rebelled against the leader. Yani, you guys are just here making in the masjid saying that.
Yeah, like
So the companion, they said they kept quiet. He kept quiet and didn't respond to him. Because you don't respond to ignorant people. And so when they were quiet for a long time, the man, he looked at them and he said, Wallahi inna al-haq. So Wallahi we're upon the truth. So the companion, he said, Wallahi la takununa al-haq hatta yushfiq al-ra'i wa yansahu al-ra'iyah. He said that, Wallahi, you're never going to be upon the truth until the leader is soft upon you and the ra'iyah, the people who are being led, they advise the leader in a nice way. They have nasiha to the leader. It shows that you guys doing what you're doing, you're not upon the truth. Us in the masjid doesn't mean we're just sitting down being. You see that companions were doing the same thing.
Yeah, and also this word, this narrative of you guys are just
It's a
taking the easy
secular
route.
narrative as well.
There's nothing new about it.
Secular.
That's basically what you're trying to say.
Secular.
Like this has been addressed already.
One sec, explain
And
that.
that's what I'm trying to say is that
One sec. I beg you, just explain.
No, yeah, it's a secular narrative because secularism.
Because they try to say we're secular.
Yeah,
They try to
exactly.
flip it on us, and we say don't protest. They say, oh look, he doesn't want to get one government.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a
secular.
secular narrative because you're separating the religion from the state. Because you're saying the dua,
So
your
deep.
religion doesn't have any effect on the state. Your dua has an effect on the state. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to make dua. Your salah has an effect on people around you. Your commanding, they're going to forbid
Wow,
evil, and
that
your
is so
dua,
deep.
it has,
Wallahi, that is so
and
deep.
seeking of knowledge, it has an effect on people around you. You're teaching the people has an effect on the state. But when they say that your dua has no effect on the state, that's separating the deen from the
and the
dawah.
opposite is true as well. Your sins has have an effect.
So that is secularism.
there's a dalil in the Quran from this. Allah said, كَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Allah said, and like that, we placed oppressive. Wallahi, look at this. Wallahi, this ayah is powerful. I don't know why there's any discussion after this. And this is answering the shubha that you brought at the beginning about aren't the rulers the problem. Allah said, like that, we placed oppressive rulers over them because of what they used to do. The ruler is evil because you're evil. The problem is not the ruler. The problem is you.
The people, the state.
Us.
Yeah, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change the condition of themselves.
There you go.
ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. Oppression happens or
Because of what the hands of
corruption
people
happens because of the people their own actions have earned.
did. So now, and this is what I'm saying, is that the real cop-out
It's the protest.
is to speak against the ruler and protest. Shall I tell you why?
Anyone
Because
can
you're
do
not
that.
dealing with the problem.
That's what
which
I'm-
is
yeah.
You can't
You
face
have to
your
leave
own
behind
issues.
shirk.
Yeah.
You have to leave behind innovation. You have to break up with your girlfriend. You have to stop watching Netflix.
That's the same point I was gonna make.
You have to stop bashing. You have to stop watching porn. You have to stop disrespecting your parents. You have to stop backbiting. You have to stop slandering. You have to make the change.
That's literally. Yeah, sorry.
But I'm saying, so that's the real cop out. You have to study Tawheed. You have to do what? Inkarul munkar, shirk, bid'ah.
And it's a lack of iman for them, for those people who don't say, I can't, I just don't. How can that work? It doesn't work. You don't believe in Allah, what Allah said. Allah told you.
That's
Right? It's
the
a lack
flip
of
side
iman.
that.
That is
Yeah.
actually a lack
First,
of
you're
religiosity.
rejecting the hadith of the Prophet telling you not to do it, and
And
now
then-
you're displaying that you don't believe
That Allah
And
can
it's,
do.
Allah
that's why
Quran,
again,
he says-
the people of innovation, they're called the people of desires because he doesn't get it. I don't get how, because he's following his desires. You get it? He's following his desires. That's what it is.
And just to reiterate the point that you made is that, like I said, there's people there like linking their girlfriends, people there that came there high, people there that were doing all sorts of like haram happening there, and then music playing and this, that, one, blah blah blah. They can't get rid of those, but they're able to protest. Meaning, protesting is not difficult. Even like if you look right now. There's protests going on right now for the quarantine, face mask, but it's like people love like rebelling. It's just it gives you that sense of power. I'm in power. I'm going against those that are supposed to be above me. Not like
It's a natural human instinct.
it's a
to be honest.
feel good feeling that like I'm doing something, like I'm putting in the work. But really and truly, you can't deal with the problems in your own household, as you mentioned. Like your sons are going out sleeping around. Your sons are going out doing drugs. You're not in control. You got TV. You sit there watching movies with your family. There's women inappropriately dressed. There's music on. You can't do anything about that. Why? Because you're not man enough to do that. If you're not man enough to do that, you think like processing is suddenly like a very
That's
manly,
probably why they
heroic
do it.
thing.
That's probably why they want
That's what I'm
it,
saying,
because
like,
they can't do anything.
Anyone can protest.
Yeah.
It's not a difficult thing, especially where we live in
Someone else
in
arranges
the West,
it. Someone else
especially.
they just put out the posters and you just have
That's
to
what
turn
I'm saying.
up.
In the West, especially, like power in numbers, stuff like that. But how hard is it for you to sit down and think, you know what? Like, I'm gonna stop smoking. Or, you know what? I'm gonna get rid of this girl. Or, you know what? I'm not gonna allow haram to happen in my household anymore. I'm not gonna let this. I'm not gonna let this happen. That's the real hard. Like that's the real difficulty. But and that's you've convinced yourself in some warped reality that's the cop out, and this is the heroic action. And
I saw them
Yeah.
not smoking shisha and they're talking about rulers. That
bro,
that
that's
group.
what I'm saying. Like,
So they're known to do that, right?
all sorts.
Wallahi, it's not even a stereotype.
It's actually real.
One time, I was in a place and there was a shisha. I was in a restaurant and they had a shisha thing upstairs. So brothers told me, "Yo, there's HT guys upstairs."
Oh, you gotta believe that.
You can believe, wow,
You can say that.
innovating group, أخي. فرقة نارية, أخي.
Why did you leave that?
Because I don't know. I don't know. It feels bad because I've been in a very, very similar situation exactly like yours.
Yeah, so no, it's not us. It's
Yeah.
it's true, bro.
Yeah.
Imagine. Wallah, I will never forget this day. I will never forget this day. They said, "Akhi, there's some HT guys upstairs. Can you advise them?" know about HT. We've been around. We've been around, good, right? we know HT very well. So what happened? They did what? They said, come upstairs. I can imagine there was all these brothers talking about rulers. I'll never forget this. For like, I'll never. The guy had a shisha pipe. Okay, he's a reaver who accepted Islam a month before. Yeah, a month before. I don't even know if the brother like fully learned ahkam, tahara, as-salah. You know what I'm saying? He's puffing. So, wait, you know, we're going for these rulers. And he's doing this. We're going for these rulers.
My guy's blowing rings and he's
Wallahi,
talking about the
wallahi,
rulers.
I said to myself, my brother not gonna save nothing, G. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna save nothing.
No one.
Akhi, if you see the ruler right now, you can say all what you want about him. You might be smoking shisha with him. You understand? Now you talk the talk. When the ruler comes, what are you saying? Yo, you got some shisha for me? Well, I can go into your palace.
Can we choose a pipe?
Yeah, could you give me a lifetime supply of shisha? Trust me,
days.
I said these men are on that. They're on some funny thing.
I was meant to have brownies on this.
So let me. Oh yeah, snap. You're right. Abbas, you grab that box behind you.
Can I just say something? Yeah.
I smelled those brownies. I was thinking, where are they?
Yeah, listen, I was gonna say it's wrong. You know, we're talking like even you know the fact that we're entertaining somebody's shubuhat. Obviously, I know Abu Bakr is playing devil's advocate, but like, bro, we're entertaining it after the hadith already brought.
Sorry.
There's no.
That's what I'm saying. Like
conversation.
after
that's
that
when he was
point,
like,
even
there's
after
no point.
uncomfortable,
Like, we just
even
stretched
no
it.
point.
We
even
just-
trying to
yeah.
fight it, like
Yeah, we just stretched the episode for like half an hour for like just to make up the time. Like, but it's like, bro, it gives people the audacity. I think that the sort of light to be honest is wrong that we even did that. It gives people the audacity to think that after
That there's still
narrations,
something to
there's
talk
still
about.
something to talk. Bro, there's nothing to talk now.
No, but what if they say that those narrations apply to a specific time, specific scenario, specific
Bro, what are you
circumstance?
talking
How can you
about?
extrapolate from that and apply it to our
Bro,
situation?
what are you talking about?
They don't even say that,
Again,
to be
you're
honest.
bringing your personal opinions.
I'm just-
The
I'm
hadith,
hoping.
you're bringing your personal
Didn't I
opinions
say
again. Again, if you're gonna say that the narration applies to a specific time, bring another narration. Bring another text. Right now, all you brought is your intellect. Don't bring your intellect to Allah.
Sorry.
Don't do that. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, well, like that will lead to apostasy. Every day things you could talk back to the Messenger. Every day things you could talk back to the Messenger.
That's the whole point, isn't it? That's the objective.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like it's pretty clear cut, man. Like I
But
don't know
you know, people
where.
are still gonna be dumb about it, akhi. You know what it is? Hellfire is made for some people. Sarahatan. Hellfire is made for some people. Huh? Allah protect us. I don't know how I'm gonna die. I ask Allah for thabat on the sunnah. Wallahi, all of us, even these men watching. But akhi, some people, they're built for hell. Allah forgive them. I don't want no one to go hell. But akhi, the reality of the matter is, Prophet says 72 sects are gonna go hell. Your job is to look at the text. That's how you save it. The text, companions, text, companions.
But they
Shield
do
them.
bring the athar of some of the Salaf rebelling.
Say that again?
They bring the athar of some of the Salaf.
Even if
That
someone
was
said
the
for
thing I was
build,
mentioning again.
the Prophet said it.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sallallahu. The Prophet said it. And even then, what when he went against Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, he was on Sa'id ibn Jubair, the likes, they done takfir on him, bro. They used to believe he was a kafir. Does that make sense? And the issue of takfir, is what? It's the issue of mas'ala ijtihadiyya. They saw something in which they thought was kufr. The majority of the Sahaba of the Salaf didn't do takfir on him. If you see a guy who's a kafir, you can go rebel. When they did it, and we already established that you can go against a kafir if you have the authority. Was it the fitna of Ibn Ash'ath? He had an army. He was a general in the army, bro. He was a general in the army. They fought behind him. He brought a fat army.
Yeah, that's a military coup.
Fat army.
That's
Does that
called
make
a military
sense?
coup. Yeah.
And they thought he was a disbeliever. Does that make sense? So it's on the back of that. And even then, they regretted it. They said it was wrong. Does that make sense?
But also, not all of that, not every single opinion is considered to be an authentic opinion, and a legitimate opinion to be followed after.
Then by the narration they bring about Imam Malik, yeah, it's da'if. It's da'if.
But also, if you consider the fact that a few things, you consider the fact that the Salaf, qatibatan, all of them. If you look at Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, when he mentions his aqeedah, he says this is the aqeedah of over 1,000 of my mashayikh, 1,000 of his scholars from the Amsar, from the different cities. They mention in their aqeedah books that we don't rebel against the Muslim ruler. That shows something. That shows that, number one, they didn't consider the difference of opinion to be a legitimate difference of opinion. As they say, the scholars, they say, وليس كل خلاف جاء معتبرا إلا خلاف له حظ من النظر. Not every difference of opinion has been considered to be a legitimate difference of opinion, except for the one that has a legitimate evidence for it. So number one, they didn't consider it to be a legitimate difference of opinion because they consider it to be part of Aqidah. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala says in his Musnad, says in his Usul al-Sunnah, that whoever goes against the Sultan, فهو مبتدع. He's an innovator. So he considered to be innovator. So that brings me on to my second one. All of these are Aqidah of the Salaf. All of them mention that. The second thing though is that not only did they consider that to be the Aqidah of the Salaf, but they also considered anyone who goes against it to be from the Mubtadi'ah. If this is why if you look at Al-Hasan ibn Salih, they said Al-Hasan ibn Salih, from the narrators of Hadith, who was from they considered him to be an innovator. Imam al-Dhahabi said he was covered in innovation. That's why they left him. And what was his innovation though? The Salaf, Ibn Hajar, he said, كَانَ يَرَى السَّيْف. He used to see the safe. What does that mean? That word كَانَ يَرَى السَّيْف is a word or is a sentence that is used for anyone who sees it to be permissible to rebel against the Muslim ruler. And they use that word. That
was mustalah according to him.
That was known. Yeah. It's like كَانَ يَرَى القدر. He used to believe in the opinion of the Qadariyah. كَانَ يَرَى القدر. كَانَ يَرَى السَّيْف. He used to take the opinion that is allowed to rebel against the Muslim ruler, as explained by the ulama of Hadith, the scholars of Hadith. طيب, this word is used to consider someone to be an innovator. That's why when Waki' ibn al-Jarrah rahimahullah ta'ala, when he was narrating a hadith, he said حدثنا Hasan ibn Salih, and the students were writing, he said حدثنا Hasan ibn Salih, and they left their pens.
Subhanallah.
And they looked, and then Waki' was like, what's happening? They showed him, he sees it to be like this. أشاروا أنه كان يرى السيف. They showed that this person allows it to be. They showed that they said that this person allows us to rebel against the ruler. So he said, we don't write from this guy. And Sufyan al-Thawri, when Sufyan ibn Uyayna, when he saw Ali ibn Salih and Hasan ibn Salih, two brothers in Mecca, he said, they're doing tawaf. He said, as for Ali, they're rajulun salih. As for Al-Hasan, that person's an innovator, don't take from him. Why though? Why? The thing is, we have to look at why did they consider him an innovator? It's only because كان يرى السيف. He used to believe it to be permissible to rebel against the Muslim ruler.
He didn't go against them, but he just saw
the permissibility. And so using these narrations that some of the Salaf they rebelled, number one, all of them are considered to be narrations that you take, even if there was a difference of opinion amongst the Salaf, the difference is no longer considered amongst the Salaf after them, such as Imam Ahmad, such as Imam Bukhari, such as those people who considered those. This is a time of Waki' al-Jarrah, Sufyan bin Uyayna, and atba' al-tabi'in.
Is there an ijma' on this?
That's the point. That's the point. That's the point he's making.
Ibn Hajar brought an ijma'.
He said that there used to be a difference of opinion, and then there became an ijma' that is not allowed to rebel against Muslim rulers.
And not just that, Ibn Taymiyyah brought it up because some of them tried to say it's only a position in the madhab in the Hanbali madhab, but Ibn Taymiyyah is the one who made it permissible. So if that's the case, Ibn Hajar, who is a Shafi'i, why is he saying it as well? Does that make sense?
And only Imam Bukhari, Imam Ahmed, Imam Bukhari himself is saying that 1,000 of my scholars, all of them believe the same thing. And from amongst those things that you're not allowed to rebel.
Aqidah they said at the beginning, this is the aqidah of the ulama ul-amsar. This is the aqidah of the scholars from all of the Muslim lands. Does that make sense? So the question here is, can ijma' take place after a difference of opinion occurred? If we was to even say that a difference of opinion was valid, if we was to even say that a difference of opinion occurred in the sense where we said that the Salaf as-Salih, they used to what? They used to see that the ones who rebelled against Hajjaj, they saw him to be a disbeliever. But even if you say there was a valid difference of opinion amongst them, a difference of opinion can come, an ijma' can happen on one of those views. Does that make sense? An example of this, for example, is Abu Darda. I think Al-Bazzar in his Musnad, he has a narration where Abu Darda radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to take the view that a person who's fasting can eat ice. You know, right?
Yeah.
He can eat ice. Walakin ijma' came after that view is mahjur. It's rejected, it's boycotted. We don't take that. So he had a view, but no one says there's a difference of opinion that person's fasting can eat ice. It was his view, like an ijma' came after, and they unanimously agreed that view is to be boycotted. Does that make sense? And the same thing happened here with the issue of the rulers. So these same people will tell you what? You can't eat, you can't drink, you can't have intimate relationships with your wife when you're fasting. You can't eat ice, but they'll tell you, wait, that view is not mu'tabar, but this one here, look at that. Wallahi, they'll tell you can eat ice. You can't eat ice when you're fasting. Astaghfirullah, look, you broke your fast. But they will break the unity of the Muslims by going against the ruler. Okay, ijma' took place here. And the delil for this is the Prophet said, he said, لا يزال طائفة من أمتي ظاهرين على الحق. The Prophet said there will never cease to be a group from my ummah that is apparent on the truth. So if there are two views, one of them is true, one of them is wrong, right? And we reached a generation where one view was abandoned, only one remained. The view that was abandoned is no longer apparent in that generation. So
It can't be the truth.
So it can't be the truth, because the truth will always be apparent in every generation. So if we reach a generation in which there was a view that was abandoned and all the scholars agreed that this view is the correct view, then even if it came back after and it existed prior, it is not the truth, because the truth can never disappear from the earth even for a second. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So ijma' occurred. And the reason why we say ijma' is a proof here is because ijma', the Prophet said, Hadith Sunnah Tirmidhi, and it's sahih, it's hasan li ghayrihi. The Prophet said that my ummah will not unite upon,
Misguidance.
unanimously unite. Not unite majority, unanimously. They will not come together.
That means everyone.
Everyone on misguidance. Some try to say the hadith is weak. It has different turuq that makes it hasan لغيره. ولكن even if you say that you don't take the hadith to be strong, there's shawahid. There's many there's other ayat, there's other ahadith. That discussion is going to be long. But ijma' is a proof. Whenever you see that the people have unanimously agreed upon something at a particular generation, even if 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people come after against it, they're wrong. Because
So-
at one point it became unanimous.
To conclude,
Let me just grab the chocolate.
That looks nice.
Yeah,
a lot's been mentioned. Yeah, I know. So just people are wondering, what is this? Basically, obviously, as you guys know, we don't run any ads on our channel for a variety of reasons. Not going to go into them. But one thing we are now starting is, if you are a Muslim company or a business and you want your specific product to be on the show, then inshallah we're going to now have sponsorships. So if you would like your product, featured on the show, email us at nasihasessions@gmail.com. Today's show is sponsored.
Session. There's no S in the email.
Or did I say
Nasiha
Nasihah Sessions?
Yeah.
nasihasession@gmail.com. It will be on the screen. Today's episode is sponsored by a dessert company called Dessert Delicacy on Instagram. The @ is here. And they've provided us with this Kinder Bueno brownie. Aman, do you want to get a quick close up if you can? Today's episode is sponsored by Dessert Delicacy. Can you zoom in and just show? They've provided us with this Kinder Bueno brownie. I've actually eaten. Ooh, it's looking nice, isn't it? Yeah. I've actually eaten from them before on Eid and Allahumma barik. They make a lot of. They've got a huge variety.
Are these the ones who
on
made
Instagram.
those chocolate lollipop things?
Yeah.
They were banging.
Yeah. So
Make sure you lot check them out.
check them out. Give them a follow. If you guys want to order, feel free to order. And let's get into the episode. And
Can I try one before we get into
Let's
the episode?
tuck into the food.
We've actually finished the episode, by the way, as you're going to see at the end.
So yeah,
Give to the
brothers
guests
and
first,
sisters,
give to the
that's
guests
the
first.
end of the episode. Inshallah, I hope you guys benefited. Moral of the story is, don't go against the ruler, not because we said it, because the Prophet said it.
rebel
Sallallahu
against the
alaihi wasallam.
ruler.
Yeah, sorry, don't rebel against the leader. I mean,
Say it on the mic. Say it on the mic.
I mean,
Don't rebel
you know
against
what?
the ruler. Sorry.
I think even the conclusion would have to be at least a few paragraphs long just to conclude everything
Yeah.
that's been said. Let's just leave it as
Follow the sunnah.
follow the sunnah.
Submit
On that
to
note,
the sunnah.
see you guys on the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Let's get this video to Yasin, say a number between 1 and 5,000. Random number between 1 and 5,000.
3.
A'udhu billah. Let's get this video to 3 likes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace.
Yeah, bro, don't worry. Don't worry, akhi, inshallah. I'm going to take care of that for you. 100%, yeah? Alright, then, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Take care. Who's the... Listen, I'm up sign time, my brother. I'm out. Yo, fam. I know, my bro.
No, man.
Yeah, I'm down, man, bro. What's up, bro?
Hey, what? Listen, I heard you be spending hundreds of pounds on flipping cars and that for flashy show. What's that all about?
Yeah, bro, the cars is a way to lure the brothers in who like cars, and we talked about the Deen.
So why didn't you go to the masjid for free?
But bro, have you not seen COVID? Masajid aren't allowing lectures to be done.
But bro, you're taking charity money and renting out cars. How does that even make sense?
Would you be-
That's
you-
the opposite of dawah, bro?
Would you be okay if I hired out a venue?
Yes, of course. Why don't you do that?
Well, do you know how much venues cost? I called up the Excel Centre personally. For 10,000 people, it costs over £20,000. This car right here, we hired it out for £100. Do you know how many views we get on average on Ride Out? Over 10,000 plus. That's 1p per view, where people are learning about Tawheed and Sunnah. Whereas if I was to hire out a venue, it would cost me £2 plus per person. This is 200 times cheaper than a venue.
Nah, you're still wrong, bro. You're still wrong.
Wait 1 second, bro. I swear this is our car. Abubakar, is that you? Hey, Abubakar. What a joke, man. Sorry, guys, Abubakar for you. Anyways, wanted to give you guys an update. One of the shows that we've got on our channel that's been popping is Ride Out. Alhamdulillah, it's opened us up to a completely different audience who would not be learning about the religion had it not been with Allah's permission for this show. People learn about Tawheed, learning about Sunnah, they're learning about Manhaj, and so many other important things. Guys, we're trying to take the show to the very next level. You guys have already seen what we've managed to produce on our channel already, alhamdulillah. That's just in about 1 month of us having launching the new channel. Imagine that we could take it to the next level. Look, I wasn't lying when I said it's gonna cost tens of thousands of pounds to hire out a venue to get what? A few thousand people in there. We spend a few £100s for a car every week and we get tens of thousands of views. And guess what? That's inshallah ta'ala gonna all be on your scales in the day of judgment. All you have to do to be a part of this project is donate at the link below. That's right, just donate at the link below. Why would you not want to be a part of this process? Give a little something. You guys have supported us for hiring out venues in the past. I'm telling you, this is a more cost-effective, cost-efficient method. Do you understand? This basically is our new venue. Every Sunday, Ride Out, catch us. And like I said, if you want to support, donate at the link below. Peace.